I've never told anyone this. Mostly because I don't know what it was. A mistake? A moment? Or just something I didn't want to stop? Started with something stupid. He asked if he could charge his phone. I laughed because of course he could. The outlet was behind the couch, so I pointed, kept folding laundry like it was nothing. But then he hesitated. Said, "Do you mind? I don't want to knock over your plant." I should have just done it for him. Or told him to move the couch. But instead I knelt down beside him. And reached past. It was narrow, tighter than I remembered. My shoulder pressed into his chest as I slid my hand back, fingers searching blindly. He didn't move. Not a step, not an inch. I could feel his breath on the side of my neck. The soft inhale when I brushed against him. And when I found the outlet, when I finally clicked the charger in. My hand brushed his thigh. Accident, right? Except I didn't pull away. And neither did he. I stayed there for a second longer than I should have. And in that second everything felt loud. The low hum of the fridge. The way the afternoon light cut through the blinds. The heat crawling up my spine. We weren't doing anything. Not really. But my whole body felt like it was standing at the edge of something. Something dangerous. Something stupid. I stood up slowly and turned toward him. His eyes met mine. And something passed between us. Not a word. Not a smile. Just stillness. And then, he said something I wasn't expecting. "You smell really nice." That's where everything started to unravel. Because I didn't thank him. I didn't say a word. I just looked at him, and let the silence answer for me. And he didn't look away. I should have taken it as a cue. A compliment, nothing more. But the way he said it, soft, low, like it slipped out before he could stop it. It stayed in the room long after the words did. "You smell really nice." Who says that? To someone they barely know? To someone else's friend? Someone who's off limits? I laughed it off. Not because it was funny, but because I didn't know what else to do with the heat rushing through me. "You want a drink?" I asked, heading toward the kitchen. My voice too casual. My heart anything but. I expected him to say no. To take the charger and go back to his day. But he followed me. I felt him behind me. Not too close, not yet. But close enough that the air between us started to shift. I poured him a whiskey. The kind I save for people I want to impress, not people who just stop by. Our fingers brushed when I handed him the glass. And still he didn't leave. We stood there, facing opposite counters. Two people pretending there was nothing under the surface. Two liars in a kitchen that had never felt this small. He asked about the candles on the shelf. I answered too quickly, grateful for a safe topic. But then he picked one up, held it to his nose and smiled. "Is this the one you're wearing?" I froze. It was. The candle was the same scent as the lotion I'd used that morning. Warm, subtle, barely there. But he noticed. That should have scared me. Instead it made my stomach flip. I didn't answer. I just looked at him. He looked right back. Like he was trying to memorize the way I breathed. It wasn't flirting. It was something heavier. More dangerous. And then he did something I still think about. He set the glass down. And leaned just slightly closer. Not enough to be inappropriate. Just enough to let me feel it. The suggestion, the tension, the almost. And that's when the power went out. The entire room fell into shadow. And suddenly, it was just him. And me. And the silence between us, thick as thunder. The lights cut out mid-breath. Like the moment had a heartbeat and someone pulled the plug. The fridge hummed into silence. The hallway dimmed to shadows. And in that dark, electric stillness, I could hear everything. His breath. The quiet shift of his weight. My own pulse pounding against my ribs like it wanted out. It was just a power outage. Nothing dramatic. But in that moment it felt choreographed. Like the universe tilted its head and said, "Go ahead. See what happens." He didn't speak. Neither did I. The only light came from the window, late afternoon, bleeding gold across his cheek. He looked softer in the shadows. More serious. Like the silence made him real in a way I hadn't noticed before. I told myself not to move. Just stand there. Wait. Let it pass. But I did. I stepped toward him one step. Maybe half. And he didn't flinch. Something inside me was shaking. Not fear. Not guilt. Something else. Like something I buried a long time ago just woke up and asked, "Are you really going to pretend this doesn't exist?" He reached for his glass again, but he didn't drink. He held it there, fingers tight around the rim, eyes on mine. Then softly, "Is this okay?" That question, so quiet, so clear. It hit me harder than if he'd touched me, because he could have just leaned in. He could have assumed, but he didn't. He waited. Let the space between us speak for itself. And I answered without saying a word. I stepped closer. Slow. Careful. Like every inch was a question. He didn't touch me, but I felt him. The heat of his skin. The air between our bodies trembling. I could have stopped it. I almost did. But then, his hand brushed mine. Just the back of his fingers. A whisper of skin. And I swear, my whole body leaned toward him like it had made the decision before I did. It would have been easier if he made the first move. Then I could have blamed him. Told myself it wasn't my fault, that I got caught in something I didn't start. But he didn't. He stood there steady, letting me decide. That kind of patience should have made it easier to walk away. Instead, it made everything inside me ache. Because he wasn't chasing me. He was letting me come undone all on my own. His fingers were still near mine, barely brushing, not holding. And in the soft dark of the kitchen, with nothing but the dim light spilling from the window, I forgot how to pretend. I looked at his mouth. Not on purpose. Just happened. And when I looked back up, he was already watching me. Not like he was waiting for permission. More like he already knew. I don't remember leaning in. I just remember the space disappearing, slowly like breath leaving the room. And then, kissed him. Not hard. Not fast. Just a soft, unsure, impossible kiss. Like we were both trying to answer a question we didn't know how to ask. He didn't rush. He didn't pull me closer or deepen it. He just let it happen. And that stillness, the fact that he didn't take anything more than what I gave, made it even harder to stop. My hand found the edge of the counter behind him. I held on just to steady myself. Because something in me was slipping. Not just into him, but into a version of myself I didn't recognize. When we finally pulled apart, I didn't open my eyes right away. I was afraid of what I'd see. Guilt? Regret? Hunger. But when I looked at him, he wasn't asking for more. He just said, "Okay." Like the kiss had answered something for him too. And I didn't know how to respond to that. 'Cause it wasn't okay. Not really. But I didn't want to take it back. I still don't. I thought that would be it. A kiss. A moment we could bury. Something we'd both pretend didn't mean anything. Like it was just heat and timing and shadows. But I didn't move away. And neither did he. We just stood there. Still close. Still breathing like our bodies were trying to make sense of what our mouths had just done. He looked down, at my hand still gripping the counter beside him. And then he reached for it. Not fast. Not demanding. Just his hand over mine, warm, still, and terrifyingly gentle. The kind of touch that didn't take. It asked. And something in me gave in. I let go of the counter and let our fingers thread together. That tiny movement felt bigger than the kiss. Like I'd chosen him with my whole body. He stepped in closer now. His chest brushed mine just barely. And my breath caught before I could stop it. I could smell the whiskey on him. Feel the heat radiating from his skin. His other hand moved slowly, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. He didn't speak. Didn't ask for more. But every inch of him was asking. I felt it in the way he held still. In the silence between our mouths. In the air tightening between us. My body leaned into his like it forgot about everything else. Every reason to stop, every name that would make this wrong. But my heart remembered. It was pounding like it knew what we were risking. And still it kept going. When his thumb traced the edge of my jaw, I closed my eyes. Not to escape, but to feel it more fully. Because there was nothing safe in this. But there was honesty. And God, I wanted something honest. I moved first this time too. Not a kiss. Just my forehead against his. A breath shared. A moment that felt like surrender. And then, he whispered, "Are you sure?" That question again. Soft. Careful. And again. I didn't answer with words. I just kissed him. Slower this time. Deeper. Like I wanted to feel everything he wasn't saying. And I did. All of it. The couch was right there. Just steps away. Wide enough to disappear into, soft enough to forget the world on. But we never made it that far. We stayed in the kitchen, bodies barely moving, like the floor beneath us was the only solid thing left in our lives. His hands moved first. One slid to my waist, the other to the back of my neck, fingers threading into my hair. Not rough, not hurried, but with a kind of focus that made my knees go soft. I breathed in and it caught in my chest. Tight, aching, almost painful. It wasn't about lust. Not anymore. It was something else. Need. Maybe even loneliness. The kind that lives under the skin and waits for someone to touch it. I felt the wall behind me before I even realized I was moving. His body followed mine, not pressing, not pinning, just fitting. My hands were on his shirt, gripping the fabric like I was trying to hold on to something that could vanish at any second. And maybe I was. Maybe part of me already knew this moment wasn't made to last. That what we were doing wasn't sustainable, or smart, or safe. But in the hush of that room, no lights, no excuses, none of that mattered. His lips moved along my neck like a secret, and my body answered before I could form a thought. I tilted my head. Let the moment deepen. Let the quiet between us stretch into something louder than words. We didn't speak. Not once. Because the second we did, the real world would come rushing back in. Names, rules, regret. So we stayed silent. Just breath and touch and trembling restraint. His hands didn't rush. They moved like he was reading a map he'd never seen before. Familiar but reverent. Like he knew this wasn't something we'd get to do again. And maybe that's why I let it happen. Not because I didn't care, but because for once I wanted to. The moment passed like a wave breaking in slow motion. No sharp end. No sudden goodbye. Just two people quietly coming back into their own skin and realizing what they'd just done. He didn't say much when he left. Just a soft look. A half smile. Like he was holding something he didn't know how to carry. I stood at the door after he walked out. Barefoot, still warm from where his hands had been. Trying to replay everything. And failing. There's a part of me that wanted to delete it. Erase it like a smudge on glass. Tell myself it was nothing. A moment. A mistake. And maybe that's exactly what I would have done if he hadn't texted me. Came 2 hours later. Just after the sun dipped behind the rooftops. And the house got quiet again. Like it was daring me to feel it all. The message was simple. 4 words. Are you okay now? And just like that, everything came rushing back. Not just the kiss. Not just the way his fingers curled around my waist. But the way he looked at me when he said my name. Like it meant something he wasn't ready to admit out loud. I stared at the screen for too long. Typing, deleting, typing again. I wanted to lie. Say yes. Say I was fine. Say nothing had changed. But something had. Because no one else in my life would have asked me that. Are you okay now? Not was it good. Not what does this mean? Just you. I didn't answer right away. I sat with it, with the ache, the pull, the weight of what I hadn't let myself feel in months. And then, I typed back. I don't know. Because that was the truth. And somehow I knew he'd understand. I didn't expect to see him again. Not like that. Not so soon. But the next evening, just as the light started to go gold again, I heard a knock at the door. Not loud. Not urgent. Just there. And I knew. Before I even looked through the window. Before I touched the doorknob. It was him. And I didn't hesitate. I opened it. He didn't say anything at first. Just stood there. Hands in his pockets, jaw tight like he'd been holding in too much all day. His eyes found mine. And I felt it again. That quiet thing between us. Not loud like a fire. More like heat that never really cooled. I kept thinking about what you said, he finally said. My throat tightened. I didn't say much. He smiled, but there was no humor in it. You said you didn't know. If you were okay. I nodded. He took a step closer. Still on the porch, still outside the line, but closer. I don't want this to be something you regret. That's when I looked away. Not because I was ashamed, but because I knew if I looked at him any longer I might say too much. And maybe I already had. But then he said it. Soft. Real. Final. I meant it. All of it. Not just the kiss. Not just the silence. But whatever had been living between us since before either of us admitted it out loud. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. I stepped back and let him in. Not just into the house, but into the part of me I usually keep locked away. The part that still believes someone might stay even after the lights come back on. He walked past me slow, careful, and I closed the door behind him. The same door where everything started. Only this time, I wasn't reaching past him. I was reaching for him. And when he turned around and pulled me into him without words, without needing to ask, I knew this wasn't just a moment. It was a beginning.